Hey y'all, what's going on? It's Hunter Elliott here at rangehot.com. We're in keeping with the chainsaw stuff that we've been talking about, like how to sharpen your saw and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to do another video about chainsaws, and specifically if your saw begins to cut crooked in the wood. So you stick it in the wood, and as you're bucking, it tries to drift left or right or whatever. Not you sticking the saw obviously in the wood crooked, but you got a good straight line and the saw actually begins to pull down. The very first indication this beginning to cut crooked is it could be cutting really well, but then be hard to pull through the wood. And that's because the bar is supposed to be straight, and so as it's pulling through the wood, it's beginning to pull one way or the other. So it's going to make it difficult for you to pull the power head down through the wood. There is several different reasons why your chainsaw could be cutting crooked. More than likely, it's because the chain is sharper on one side than the other. But we've already addressed how to sharpen your chainsaw. So let's say you're running your saw. Oh, wow, I've got that in my hand. Let's say you're running your saw. It begins to kind of cut crooked. Take it out. You sharpen it exactly like you're supposed to. You go back to running it, and it again begins to cut crooked. So then you've got a couple other things that you can address before you need to become concerned. And really, worst case scenario, you got to put a bar and chain on it. But there's a lot to address before you're even close to that. So I got 25-inch bar here off of my 500i. And this bar is fine actually, but I've run about 7 or 8 gallons of fuel through my saw with this bar on it. Now, one thing I recommend to avoid having that premature wear on your saw, because understand, or saw bar, guide bar, understand that everything, including the power head, is a consumable. The chain, the bar, the power head, everything's a consumable. But to prolong the life of your bar, the first thing you should be doing is, maybe every 5 or 6 sharpenings, flip the bar upside down. And they are absolutely designed to work both ways. There's an oil port here for your automatic oiler. So whenever you go to flip it over, there's an oil port on that side as well. So every 5 or 6 times you sharpen the saw or whatever, you'll kind of know, flip that bar, because this is your primary wear edge. And so every time you flip that bar, you're introducing a new wear edge. And so that's just good practice to get a lot more longevity out of your guide bar. But let's say you've been doing that, you've been flipping it like you're supposed to, the chain is sharp like it's supposed to be doing, and it's still kind of pulling to the left or right. The alignment is off, if you will. So the very first thing that I will tell people to check is the bar bent? So I've borrowed Chad's straight edge here, for demonstration purposes. You set a straight edge on the bar, piece of glass, a flat countertop. I don't think so. Make sure that bar is straight. I mean, you can eyeball it, and my eyes are pretty calibrated because I'm a genius. But I would recommend verifying. That Reagan was said, trust but verify. Verify your bar is actually not bent with a good handy straight edge. And so we know this bar is straight. I've checked with a straight edge. It's not bent. What else could it be? It's not the chain. The bar is not bent. So like I said earlier, this is a wear edge. And what happens over time is that chain rides in it. You've got a groove here, and as that chain rides, especially when you're bearing down on it, this area of the bar will begin to move. It'll begin to deform. Think about a chisel. When you've got a hammer and a chisel, and you're chiseling away, and over time, the top of that chisel head will begin to mushroom a little bit. Now, obviously, your guide bar is not going to be anywhere near that. But to give you an idea of what's going on, this guide bar can actually also begin to build up an edge, and or you've got actually 2 surfaces here. I'm going to see if I can get here. And you got 2 surfaces here in between the channel or the groove that the chain rides in. If one of those surfaces is wore more than the other, and you look down it, and it looks like it's wore down, then what's happening is when you bear down, that chain is actually falling over into the lower side of this guide bar, and that's causing it to cut crooked. So all that can be really easily addressed. So This bar is actually fine, but a lot of times what I'll do is just take your fingernail. Well, there's a little bit of an edge here. You can take your fingernail and just run it here, and you can feel just the very beginnings of a lip that's building up. That does need to be addressed. So the first thing you do is find you a good steady bench vise and get this thing chucked up. And then get a good sharp file. And what you're going to, well, how I do it is, I come here and you find that edge, and I'll just kind of put my file at a 45. You hear when it makes that loud? So you hear, and then you hear. You can kind of even hear the difference. And that's that file biting into that lip. Yeah, right? And as you dress it, you actually can, now obviously this is not how I do it. I try to get a little more over the bar, and you just kind of like at a 45. And you're going to want to do that down the entire length of the bar. If you're running a roller head, be careful, keep your file out of that. Yeah, see, you hear that? So, let's just pretend like we pretend I clean my guns after the range trip. Let's pretend I've done this. So then, get your straight edge. And you're going to want to lay it right here. Whew, I'm getting old, y'all. Get your straight edge. And what I like to do, and actually the right side of this bar has got a little more wear on it than the left. This is where some people are probably going to maybe disagree with me, and that's fine. But what I'll do is, you kind of got to have a pretty good feel, but you want to keep the file flat. And you just kind of, you go along the bar. Now, I can actually see where I'm removing metal off of the left side. And what I'll do is I'll keep, Chad, is there any way you can you get a bead on this right here? See what you can do about, that way these people can see what the hell I'm talking about. Oh, I don't know if that's going to show up on camera or not. But if you look like right here, as I'm sharpening, you can see that there's metal coming off this left rail, but not the right, because the right rail is lower. So what you're going to want to do is you run this all the way down until your file is cutting both sides of the rail. Now it ain't going to take much. Can you not really see that? Well, it'll be really easy to understand. If you've ever tried the trick of, if you've got to sand something and you spray paint it, and then you go to sand on it, and then wherever the spray paint stays, where you're not sanded, it's kind of like that. You can run your file down this bar. You gotta make sure you're keeping it pretty flat. And I can see now that I'm starting to get that lip even all the way down the side of this. Anyway, I'm not gonna. But there, I mean, hell, that's dressed. So, like I said, it was barely noticeable. This bar had not been cutting crooked, so I didn't even know it was off like that. Pardon me. And then, realistically, once you have done that, the next thing you're going to do, you hear how loud that is? That's that cutting out the edge off. And then, so the first thing you really want to do is make sure this is flat, make any adjustments, and then come back and cut a little bevel. You ain't got to get crazy. A little bit goes a long ways. Once you've got, you're going to have to move the bar around a little bit, because you really need to, while this is your primary cutting area, which is where you need to be paying attention to, if you're going to do it, make sure, of course, now this is behind the sprocket cover. So obviously there's very little wear here, but in the interest of everything being nice and happy and uniform, I do the whole length of the bar, and then make sure, of course, you know, that's actually got a little bit of the edge on it. Not much. So I've come along this bar, the top, and I've filed this leading edge flat and level, and you come back and you dress here. Now, because you've got two wear sides on this bar, and you're done with that, you flip it over, same process. And that's actually known as dressing the bar. And I would probably tell you, every time you wear out a chain, or maybe not even, especially if you booger a chain up bad, hitting dirt or rock or whatever, every time you wear out a chain, or maybe not quite, dress the bar. If you stay ahead of it, you know what I mean? You don't like, oh, it's cutting crooked, now I got to get after it. Then if you stay ahead of the game and you just got to take a little bit of metal off, then it's going to be a lot easier, take a lot less time, and give you less chance of a faux pas, if you will. So anyway, that's how you dress a guide bar for a chainsaw. And that's really about it. If you have got your chain sharpened correctly, and you have got your guide bar dressed correctly, then there's no reason whatsoever for your saw to cut crooked in wood. And you're not going to notice it in little stuff, but like on a 25-inch bar, you know, if I sink this into a 20, 22, 24-inch piece of wood that's got some size around it, that's where you're going to primarily notice any kind of cutting issues. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but it's a pretty simple process. I certainly drew it out a lot more than I should have, but you know how I am. So that's about all I got. If you got any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to Range Hot. I'm going to post a link to how to sharpen your chainsaw video in the description of this video. So, you know, start with that, dress your guide bar, and you know, something to consider is you don't have to wait till your saw is dull or wait till your guide bar needs attention before you address it. So anyway, Chad and I have been on a big logging job, and you know, when he's going in there getting wood with the excavator to bring up to be bucked for the sawmill, I say I got maybe 10 minutes. I'll just set my saw down on a log there, and I'll just go along and I will quickly dress the edge of that saw chain. And that way, if you keep the chain sharp, then it's going to less wear and tear on your bar, less wear and tear on your saw, less wear and tear on you. So, you know, my point is sharpening a chain and dressing a bar is preventive maintenance, just like cleaning an air filter. So anyway, I appreciate it, y'all. Take care of yourself. Have a good one.